presenter with us today. His name is Tom Bozzi? Bozzi.
Hey.
And he's going to tell you about the significance of our lives. So please give him your undivided attention. If you feel that this isn't a subject for you, please take your conversation in the other room so the people who are here to hear him can hear that. And I know it's going to be interesting, so I'm going to stay myself. Good morning, Tom.
All right, good morning. Thank you. And I'd like to thank you and Carrie for allowing me to come in today to speak to you about a topic which I call Finding Your Life Purpose. We are all here for a reason. And I came upon this topic 4 years ago when I lost my wife to lung cancer. And I was so far down, I was devastated. And I was so far down that I had to look up to see help. And a good friend of mine, Peggy Richard, who's also a good friend of some other people here in the room, sat with me one day after Bible class and she said to me, "You know, Tom, you're here for a reason. If God wanted both of you, he would have taken both of you at the same time. But for some reason, you're still here and he took Lori home." So she said to me, focus your life on finding your reason, your purpose. And I thought about that, and there was a song back in the 60s that was written by a rock group called the Byrds. And the name of the song is called Turn, Turn, Turn. And the group extrapolated that song from the book of Ecclesiastes. And that song goes through a series of events that happen in our life. There's a time to plant, there's a time to harvest. There's a time to laugh, there's a time to cry. There's a time to live, and there's a time to die. But in that song, there is a line there that really echoes what Peggy was telling me after Bible class. And it says, there is a time for every purpose under heaven. There is a time for every purpose. It doesn't say there's a time for some purpose, or there's a time for this purpose, but there's a time for every purpose under heaven. Each one of us has a significant purpose in this life. Some of us may say, well, gee, I'm not Mickey Mantle. I'm not hitting home runs and leading the Yankees to World Series after World Series. Or I'm not Judy Garland making beautiful movies like The Wizard of Oz and Meet Me in St. Louis and filling auditoriums with people. Our role in life is not to worry about filling stadiums or auditoriums. Our role in life is to fill hearts. Our role in life is to fill hearts. Whether we impact some people in a room like this or we fill a stadium, the significance is the same. There is a time for every purpose under heaven. You never want to let your network be your self-work. Every one of us is unique and gifted in their own way. It's just like fingerprints. There are no two people in the entire world that have the same fingerprints. Imagine that. Billions and billions of people, and no one, even identical twins. And I'm an identical twin, and I'll apologize for that. But even identical twins do not have the same fingerprints. As unique as these fingerprints are, so are you. And so are you. And so are you. And so are you. That's how gifted and special each one of you are. So the role in life, then, is to take those gifts and talents and be yourself. When I speak in public, I always say to people, be yourself. Everyone else is taken. We spend our whole life, Mary trying to be Joan, Bob trying to be Mike. It doesn't matter. You're who you are. If you were supposed to be Mary, they would have made you Mary. So you have gifts and talents that are unique to you, and you can use those to find your life purpose. There is a time for every purpose under heaven. And sometimes those purposes are hidden behind the reason of the purpose that we think we have. And as we use those talents and gifts, we stretch ourselves. It's like a rubber band. When you take a rubber band and stretch it, it never comes back to its original shape. It's bigger than it was when you started. So as we stretch and grow and do new things, we become more than we were than when we started. We're more than what we are. Just by being in this room and being open to this talk, you're stretching yourself to be more than you were when you started. And I had to learn that, being visually impaired. And losing my wife 4 years ago, my life changed. I could have either sat in a corner, or like Peggy said, go find your life purpose. Everyone has a reason. My late wife came into our family, and she was not of Italian descent. She was American, as we said. And she was enamored with the Christmas Eve dinner that we have, the 7 fishes and all the desserts. And before we even got married, she said, you know, hon, if we have children someday, I'd like to have this tradition for our children. We didn't even have kids at the time, but she had a vision. Helen Keller always says, I feel sorry for the people who have sight and have no vision. So she got next to my mother, and she learned how to make the 7 fishes. My brother Stephen said, not only did your wife learn to make the Italian Christmas Eve, she mastered it. For the Italians, Christmas Eve is the jewel of all the holidays. My father used to say, Christmas Day you can take the tree down, Christmas is over. That's how big Christmas Eve was. But in the core of the Christmas Eve dinner that we had this cookie called the gazelle, a little round deep-fried cookie that my grandmother's family came over Italy with, and they would put carob syrup and confectionery sugar. So my late wife learned to make those. But the challenge with the gazelle, it's not like making a sugar cookie. It was 8 hours of rolling the dough. The flavor of the cookie came from the thinness of the dough. The thinner the dough, the better the cookie tasted. So it took hours. She and I, we'd set up the kitchen like it was a bakery, rolling the dough to get it just right. And every year my father would say to her, Lori, the gazelles are excellent. They would bring them out. My mother would put the syrup, just like my father had in Brooklyn, and the confectionery sugar. 30 years, Lori, the gazelles are excellent. So now one would think that was her reason, her life purpose. But there was more. On my father's last Christmas, December of 2012, he was dying of stomach cancer. And that saying, once a man, twice a child, is so true. I mean, he was a big guy who would dive into the ocean in Long Island where I grew up like a fish, like a whale, and I would be on his shoulders. He'd pick me up and throw me into the waves with my brother. And here he was. His clothes were loose. He was using a walker, and he was dying of stomach cancer. So this was Christmas 2012, and here we are at the big dining room table. We had the 7 fishes and all the Italian things that we had, and out come the gazelles. And they put it in front of my father, and they put the carob syrup just like he had in Brooklyn. They put the confectionery sugar, and he lifts the thing to his mouth. I was sitting here. He was at the head of the table. My late wife was right next to me. And he lifts the cookie to his mouth, and he eats it, shaking. And he looks at Lori, and he says, this Christmas, you brought my mother to me. Imagine that. This Christmas, you brought my mother to me. For 30 years, he told her that gazelles were excellent. But this Christmas, you brought my mother to me. I said to her later, they don't make a box big enough for what you gave him this year. And they don't make a box big enough for what he gave her that year. You see, my friends, when you're open to try new things and you stretch, she gave my father the gift of a lifetime. The gift of a lifetime. So was her reason and her purpose under heaven to make those cookies for 30 years? Or was her time and purpose under heaven to give my father the gift of a lifetime? You see, sometimes our purpose is kind of hidden behind what we think our purpose is. But we are all here, like Peggy said, for a reason. I have come to believe the reason why she learned to make those cookies was for my father's last Christmas. There is a time for every purpose under heaven. Sometimes in life we're looking for the boom. We should be looking for the whisper. What is the whisper? The nervous bride at the altar who says, I do. The baby that reaches up out of the crib with the toothless grin and grabs your finger for the first time. Or the spouse that comes up behind you and says, peekaboo, I love you. That's the whisper. We're so busy looking for the boom. we miss the whisper. My father and my late wife found the meaning of Christmas in a cookie. The whisper. I encourage all of you, keep your ear open for the whisper. You'll find purpose and reason in that. I have come to be very blessed by meeting a woman 2 years ago after I lost my wife. Her name is Veronica. And if you ask her, Veronica, do you like to dance? She'll say, no. I love to dance. And so do I. And so we do square dancing, swing dancing, what you guys would call the jitterbug, and we do contra dancing. Now, I'm visually impaired. Contra dancing is like square dancing, but instead of 8, it's 4 people. And you go through a series of choreography, and as you do that choreography in a room like this, you start from one end here, and you go all the way through 40 or 50 people, and you come back down. Now, for someone who's visually impaired, that's quite a challenge, wouldn't you say? But when you harness the desire, and you keep yourself open for new things, and you stretch yourself like the rubber band, it's amazing what you can accomplish, because there is a time for every purpose under heaven. So there's this one dance step they call the hey, which you guys would call a figure 8. So now you have to go in by the right, then by the left, then by the right, and by the left, turn around, swing your partner, spin the partner, done. Now when I saw that, I said, that's the dance step that I have to learn. The other ones I figured I could do because I had already been doing square dance. But that hey, or you would call it a figure 8, I would have to learn how to do. So I never said anything to Veronica. And for 2 months in my basement, I set up 4 chairs. And I went in by the right and by the left, then by the right and by the left, then by the right and by the left, around and around and around and around and around and around. Because I define my life, not my vision. I define the way I'm going to live. So around and around and around the chairs I went for 2 months, over and over and over again. So now we go to the contra dance, we line up, we start dancing, and the caller says the hey. I go in by the right, in by the left, in by the right, in by the left, turn around, swing my partner, boom. We get to the end of the line, Veronica takes my hand, she goes, Tommy, you did that, how did you? I said to her, because I love you, I've been practicing for 2 months with chairs in the basement. And so I wanted to do this. Now, some would say, well, your reason and your purpose was to please your girlfriend. But there's more. 4 months later, we're at the same dance hall, 40 people, in a room like this, 40 people all in a circle. And they're going to start to teach some of the basic steps. And the caller says, Tommy and Veronica, can you come up here and show everyone how to do the hay? Can you show everyone how to do the hay? And that night, as I danced, people said to me, gee, if you can do this, I can do this. And, you know, there's things in my life that I would like to accomplish. And, I mean, you're disabled, or as Catherine and I say, differently able. And you can do these dance steps. So I empowered people in a room that I didn't know. So was my purpose to learn that step for my girlfriend and I? Or did I really learn it so that I can empower and fill hearts of people so that they can reach out and try and stretch and grow and be more than what they are? See, sometimes our purpose is hidden beside something else. There is a time for every purpose under heaven. No, I'm not Mickey Mantle where I'm filling Yankee Stadium, but it's the same significance. The fact that 35 people were empowered to try to do something new, it's the same. It's the same. That's why I say don't let your net worth be your self-worth. Sometimes some of us in this room say, well, I'm not Mickey Mantle, I'm not Judy Garland, it's irrelevant. The fact that, as Peggy said, you're here, you have a reason and a purpose. And so I learned those steps because I wanted to stretch and grow and do something new. So even though I'm visually impaired, I do not let my vision define me. I define the life I live. And I would encourage all of you as well, as you're going through life. I know some of us here, a lot of us here are senior citizens. You may say, well, gee, Tom, we're at a point in our life where we're done. But not really. If you think of what Peggy said, the fact that you're here, there's something for you to do. There's something for you to accomplish. Every day you have something in front of you. You have time to do something new. My friends, there is a time and every purpose under heaven. We all have a reason. A lot of times people say everything happens for a reason. It does. But everything doesn't happen without you. Don't underrate yourselves. You are the ones that make things happen. You are the ones that have the purpose. You are the ones that can change the life of someone. As I said earlier, we're looking for the boom, we miss the whisper. Some people want to build a bonfire. Sometimes you can't build a bonfire. You know what's better? If I turned all the lights off in this room and gave everyone a little candle, and one person lit the next person, lit the next person, lit the next person, guess what? We'd have a roaring fire in here. This room would be full of light. That's how you have to live your life. It doesn't have to be a bonfire. A candle, a candle, a candle, a candle. And then the room is lit. And what a beautiful vision that is to see the room lit. Success is not what you have, but what you give away. And I've learned that finishing first is not so important as helping someone else finish first. It's okay to be in the sidelight. You don't always have to be in the spotlight. The reward sometimes is greater seeing someone else cross the finish line. And I'll end with this. Years ago, I was on the track team in Long Island, and we used to run the relay. I'm sure some of you guys might have run the relay back in high school. You don't really work on how fast you run. You work on handing that baton over and over. Catch it, give it, catch it, give it, catch it, give it. But what happens is the last person who runs the leg of the race, he crosses the finish line. But he doesn't get there without the other 4 people. But the key there is handing that baton. Because by just missing that handoff, I don't care how fast you are, you could lose the race. Each one of you in this room has a baton. That baton is the gifts and talents that you have. You hand it correctly to the next person, and then your team wins the race. The way we practice the handoff of that baton is the way we all need to practice the giving of gifts and talents that we have to the next person. It's an amazing feeling when you can help someone else finish first. You're just as much a winner. I'll close with this. I want to thank all of you for listening to me today. It was my pleasure to come out and share this. And remember, there is a time for every purpose under heaven. It doesn't say that there's a time for every accident under heaven. It doesn't say that there's a time for every coincidence under heaven. There's a time for every purpose, every one under heaven. I want to thank you all. I hope you have a wonderful lunch. I want to thank Kerry as well. And I'll be around if someone wants some questions or to ask anything that you'd like about me and my vision and all of that other good stuff. So thank you very much for listening. I appreciate it. Have a wonderful afternoon.